The Revenge of the Sith, that opened on May 19, 2005, wasn't the film George Lucas shot. That's not a theory. The evidence is on Disney Plus right now, in the bonus features of a DVD Lucasfilm shipped in November 2005, in a behind-the-scenes documentary that accompanied the film's theatrical release. George Lucas filmed scenes that were completed, acted, lit, scored, edited to assembly quality, and then removed them from the version that reached theaters. Those missing scenes answer, one by one, every major criticism the film has carried for 20 years. Fans have spent 2 decades criticizing Anakin's abrupt turn to the dark side, Padmé's reduction to a weeping victim who dies of heartbreak in a medical facility, and an Obi-Wan friendship that feels described rather than demonstrated. Each failure traces to specific footage that George Lucas filmed and chose not to include. The deleted scenes aren't supplemental trivia. They're the prosecution's case. For 20 years, the prequel debate has circled 2 fixed positions. The prequels were good, or they were bad. Both positions were evaluating a document with missing pages. By all documented accounts, the assembly cut was long, paced unevenly, and contained sequences that worked individually but disrupted the film's forward momentum when arranged end-to-end. Lucas reviewed that assembly, identified significant problems with pacing and flow, and made the decision to cut aggressively toward efficiency. Assembly cuts are typically reduced by preserving plot-driving sequences and trimming character development that serves texture rather than story advancement. Revenge of the Sith followed that principle with near-total consistency. Surviving intact were the film's action set pieces, the opening battle above Coruscant, the General Grievous pursuit sequence, the Order 66 montage, the Mustafar duel. Technically magnificent filmmaking, every one of them. Reduced or removed were, with striking regularity, the psychological and political scenes, the extended Palpatine-Anakin conversations building the manipulation arc, the Senate sequences showing Padme as a political actor, the Anakin and Obi-Wan character moments that established the friendship's emotional specificity beyond what the plot required. What remained was a film with extraordinary spectacle and depleted interiority. The confirmed deleted material on official home releases runs shorter than the 20 minutes figure that circulates in fan discussions. No single authoritative source pins that total with confidence, and presenting it as verified would overstate the evidence. The confirmed scenes are individually significant enough that their removal explains the film's documented failures with surgical precision. The runtime figure doesn't need to be established to prove the argument. The scenes themselves do that. Palpatine's manipulation architecture is the load-bearing spine of the entire film, and the place where the editorial damage is most structural. The theatrical cut gives the audience Palpatine working at full register in one extended scene, the Opera House. Anakin sits beside him above a performance of alien music, and Palpatine leans in and tells the story of Darth Plagueis the Wise, a Sith who could prevent death, whose master killed him in his sleep once he taught everything he knew. Ian McDiarmid doesn't threaten or recruit in that scene. He offers a story, precisely calibrated, to a man whose terror of losing his pregnant wife has reached its highest pitch. Critics who dismissed every other element of the prequel trilogy consistently cited that scene as an exception. What they were identifying, without knowing it, was a surviving sample of a larger architecture. One finished piece of a manipulation structure that Lucas had filmed across multiple scenes and then dismantled in the editing room. The Opera House scene functions as a climax of manipulation. It was designed to arrive after an escalating series of private conversations that established the pattern. Without those earlier stages, it plays as an isolated moment of brilliance in a film that otherwise rushes its most important relationship. Palpatine's systematic demolition of Anakin Skywalker, as Lucas wrote and filmed it, operated across 4 distinct tactical lines. The first is isolation. Palpatine's fundamental strategic objective is to sever every relationship Anakin trusts until the only voice he hears clearly is Palpatine's own. By the time Revenge of the Sith begins, 2 films of groundwork are already laid. The Chancellor has cultivated Anakin privately since the boy's arrival in the Republic. positioning himself as the one powerful figure who valued Anakin without the Jedi Order's reservations about the Chosen One's dangerously personal attachments. In Revenge of the Sith, the Jedi Council delivers Palpatine the opening he needs. They grant Anakin a seat on the Council while explicitly withholding the rank of Master, a specific public humiliation that Anakin calls out in the moment and that Ki-Adi-Mundi dismisses with clipped brevity. Then they ask him to spy on the Supreme Chancellor, a man Anakin has known since childhood, without apparent recognition of the ethical position this creates. They exclude him from the final operation against Palpatine entirely, despite his being the most powerful Force user in the Order. The theatrical cut shows all three decisions clearly. What the deleted Palpatine sequences were built to add was the Chancellor's real-time commentary on each of them as they unfolded, watching the Council diminish Anakin and, in conversation after private conversation, naming aloud exactly what Anakin was already thinking. Every effective manipulator understands the distinction between persuasion and confirmation. Palpatine, in the deleted material, was never persuading Anakin toward resentment. He was confirming resentment that was already present, attaching it to a coherent narrative of institutional betrayal, and giving it a structure it could survive on. The extended home media scenes include Palpatine telling Anakin that changes to the Constitution will bring about a quick end to the war. He presents this not as a seizure of power, but as a reluctant conclusion, the act of a pragmatist who has determined, with evident regret, that democratic institutions are inadequate to an unprecedented crisis. The temporary suspension of normal rules is framed as a burden he accepts for the people he serves. A version of this language circulates in fan discussions, with the specific phrasing, "There are times when we must all endure adjustments to the Constitution in the name of security." But tracing that exact wording to a confirmed, released scene transcript puts it in contested territory. The verified home media version uses the quick end to the war formulation. The substance is the same either way. A figure of enormous authority, speaking privately, to someone who trusts him absolutely, explaining why the rules must bend right now, in this emergency, for the greater good. Put that on screen. Step back. The audience watching in 2025 completes the thought. The third tactical vector remains the most contested element of the deleted scene record.
The claim circulates widely in fan communities that Palpatine, in either cut footage or an early screenplay draft, implied to Anakin that Obi-Wan Kenobi and Padme Amidala had a romantic relationship. A targeted lie designed to simultaneously destroy Anakin's trust in his closest friend and his secret wife, leaving Palpatine as the sole remaining anchor in his psychological world. The source for this claim is a social media post from a Star Wars fan page that includes the phrase, "This was probably for the version of the script where Anakin was tricked by Palpatine into believing that Padme was having an affair with Obi." The operative words are probably and version of the script. This is informed speculation about an early screenplay draft. It isn't documentation of a completed, filmed scene on any home media release. What is real is a genuine structural gap in the theatrical cut. On Mustafar, Anakin sees Obi-Wan emerge from Padme's ship, interprets her attempt to reach him as betrayal, and force chokes her. The theatrical cut doesn't construct a coherent interior pathway to that specific action. The paranoia required, directed suspicion that the two people closest to him have conspired against him together, arrives in the film without sufficient prior architecture. Whether a Palpatine lie about Padme and Obi-Wan was ever completed and filmed, or existed only in draft form, the gap it would fill is dramatically real, and the frustration it generates has been documented consistently across 20 years of audience response to that scene. The counter-argument is serious enough to deserve genuine engagement. Obi-Wan Kenobi's arc across 3 films establishes a man of almost punishing personal discipline, a Jedi who buried his feelings for Satine of Mandalore inside the identity of the Order, who mentored Anakin partly by modeling the renunciation of personal attachment the Code demanded. The suggestion that this character pursued a relationship with his student's secret wife strains against everything the films established him to be. If Palpatine's implied lie is too implausible on its face,
Anakin's belief in it risks registering less as the product of sophisticated manipulation and more as psychotic break, which makes the tragedy smaller rather than larger, and damages Anakin's agency as a character in ways the film can't recover from. That's not a minor objection. It cuts at the moral coherence of Anakin's arc. That debate is unresolved. Given the current state of the documentary record, it's probably unresolvable. What isn't unresolved is that the Mustafar strangling scene required more psychological preparation than it received, and the deleted material edges toward providing it in ways the theatrical cut abandoned entirely. The fourth tactic, weaponizing the Jedi Council's institutional disrespect, is where the theatrical cut comes closest to doing the dramatic work the deleted scenes were designed for, which makes the remaining gaps feel sharper rather than softer. Beyond the public humiliation of denying Anakin the master rank, the Council ethically compromises him with a spy assignment and then excludes him from the endgame operation against Palpatine. All of this is in the theatrical cut. What the deleted Palpatine sequences were built to construct was the cumulative effect of the Chancellor responding to each decision in real time, ensuring Anakin never processed a single institutional betrayal without Palpatine's framing already present. By the time Anakin watches Mace Windu leave him behind, the theatrical cut shows a man who is hurt. The full version was supposed to show a man whose hurt had been carefully organized, over months of private conversation, by someone who needed that hurt to arrive at a specific destination. The theatrical cut plants the seeds. The deleted material showed Palpatine watering them, steadily and methodically, until Anakin's resentment toward the Jedi became indistinguishable from Palpatine's own appetite for their destruction, and the audience would recognize, without being told explicitly, that they were watching the interior mechanics of every democratic collapse that has ever occurred from the inside. The manipulation works not because Palpatine creates something new in Anakin. It works because Palpatine finds what is already there and gives it a name. The most completely documented casualty of the Revenge of the Sith edit is a scene called Seeds of Rebellion. It's on Disney+. It was included in the November 2005 DVD bonus features. It's finished, professional filmmaking, fully lit, completely performed, scored, and edited. Padmé Amidala hosts a meeting in her Coruscant apartment. Bail Organa of Alderaan is there. So is Mon Mothma of Chandrila. Genevieve O'Reilly's first appearance as Mon Mothma in the Star Wars franchise is in this deleted scene. Not in Rogue One, not in Andor. Here, in footage that George Lucas removed from the theatrical release, leaving her invisible to general audiences for years. A character who would eventually lead the Rebel Alliance and serve as Chancellor of the New Republic, made her debut in material treated as optional. She remained absent from the public Star Wars story until Rogue One brought her back, and Andor elevated her to the center of a critically acclaimed series about exactly the kind of resistance this deleted scene depicts being born. The senators gathered in Padmé's apartment are the delegation of 2000, the group that formally petitioned Palpatine to relinquish his emergency powers. And Seeds of Rebellion shows them acknowledging what is happening to their republic and beginning, carefully, to organize against it. The theatrical cut makes the Empire's rise feel rapid and nearly inevitable, because the people who might have prevented it are either absent from the narrative or shown at the margins of events they can't affect. This scene establishes that people were fighting, that there was a specific, organized political response forming in real time, that the Empire didn't consolidate because no one opposed it. It consolidated because the opposition wasn't strong enough yet. That is a meaningfully different story than the one the theatrical cut tells, and it fundamentally changes the moral weight of what audiences watched in 2005. Padmé is at the center of it, and that's the prosecution's sharpest exhibit regarding her character. In the theatrical cut, her function is almost entirely reactive. She waits. She weeps. She dies in a medical facility from a cause the screenplay attributes to having lost the will to live. A woman whose entire characterization across 2 prior films had been built around political agency and moral resolve, dying of heartbreak because the film ran out of things for her to do. For a character established as a queen who held off a planetary occupation through military coordination and parliamentary strategy, the theatrical ending represents something close to character erasure. Seeds of Rebellion shows what Padme was doing while her marriage was collapsing, sitting in rooms with Bail Organa and Mon Mothma, attempting to save a republic. George Lucas wrote and filmed that woman, the senator in the resistance meeting. The editing room took her out and left only the grief. The emotional apex the entire prequel trilogy was built toward is the Mustafar duel and the words Obi-Wan delivers at its close. "You were my brother, Anakin. I loved you." Ewan McGregor performs it with everything he has. For a significant portion of the audience, the dedicated viewers, not the casual ones, the people who care deeply about what the film was attempting, it landed at something below its intended weight. McGregor's performance isn't the variable. Accumulation is. The theatrical cut establishes Anakin and Obi-Wan's closeness through efficient shorthand. Synchronized combat in the opening sequence, shared banter that implies years of partnership, Obi-Wan stating explicitly that Anakin is like a brother. The foundation exists. What the theatrical cut doesn't provide is the private register of that relationship, the specific, unrepeatable texture of two people who have spent a decade surviving mortal situations together. That kind of intimacy can only be shown across multiple small moments. It can't be stated in a single line and expected to carry the weight of a decade. The confirmed extended sequences from the film's opening act show Anakin and Obi-Wan operating with the shorthand and physical ease of a long partnership, documented on home releases, available to watch. That accumulated intimacy is the scaffolding the "you were my brother" line was designed to rest on. In the theatrical cut, that scaffolding was removed. The line still carries grief. The distance between "this is sad" and "this is devastating," between a tragedy that registers and one that follows the audience out of the theater and settles into them over years, is precisely where the deleted material used to live. The claim that merchandise considerations drove these specific editorial choices, that Senate scenes were cut because senators don't generate action figure revenue, carries genuine intuitive weight and appears in fan discussions with real traction. No documented statement from Lucas or anyone in the production has confirmed that merchandise priorities shape specific scene selections. The circumstantial pattern is suggestive. The scenes that were cut consistently involve characters doing things that have no commercial toy analog, while the scenes that survived intact are the ones that filled toy shelves for years. But circumstantial pattern isn't confirmed motive, and arguing beyond what the record supports would weaken a case the record already proves without it. Lucas's documented editorial reasoning centered on pacing and forward momentum. That is a legitimate concern, and cutting to address it's a legitimate response. The question isn't whether the edit was editorially justified as an abstract principle. The question is what specifically was prioritized, and what the pattern of those priorities produced. Spectacle survived. Interiority was cut. That asymmetry produced a film whose action sequences are technically unimpeachable, and whose psychological architecture is visibly incomplete. A film accused, for 20 years, of not earning its most important emotional moments. A fair accusation, directed at the wrong address. George Lucas wrote a screenplay that functions, in its complete form, as a political thriller about institutional corruption embedded inside a classical tragedy about a young man's psychological destruction. He filmed that screenplay. Palpatine's manipulation of Anakin Skywalker was scripted and shot as a coherent, sequential operation across multiple completed scenes. The founding conversation of the Rebel Alliance was filmed with Padme Amidala, Bail Organa, and Mon Mothma in the same room. Padme was written and photographed as a political actor who was still fighting while her marriage collapsed. The Obi-Wan and Anakin friendship was filmed with enough private specificity to make its rupture genuinely devastating. Then Lucas cut it.
all of it. The Seeds of Rebellion deleted scene alone, Genevieve O'Reilly's first appearance as Mon Mothma in the entire Star Wars franchise, the founding meeting of the Resistance, available on Disney Plus right now, is sufficient evidence that Lucas the filmmaker delivered a dramatically complete picture. The version that reached theaters on May 19th, 2005, the one that generated 20 years of arguments about what was wrong with the prequel trilogy, wasn't a failure of storytelling. It was the product of specific editorial decisions that removed the dramatic accumulation the story required to work at its full intended register. Your instinct that something was missing from that film was literally and physically correct. The missing material existed. It was shot, performed, lit, and scored. Every scene that the theatrical cut needed to earn its emotional moments was completed before the editors got to work. The tragedy was finished. In a cutting room, it was taken apart. The filmmaker gave the audience everything. The editor took it away. Those two men share the same name, which is precisely why 20 years of debate produced no resolution. Everyone was arguing about the wrong version of George Lucas. And neither side was right, because neither side was watching the right film. Subscribe for more stories like this.